Hi, I'm Brian Perez. I play Tenor 2 in the Houston Jazz Orchestra. I'm also Director of Jazz Studies at Texas Southern University, and I'm going to be playing Saxophone Etude number 3 here for you. This is a really great tune written by Rick Condit of Lamar University. It's got some really nice melodies, some really interesting chord changes, and a nice brisk tempo. So let's play it, and then afterwards we'll talk about some tips and tricks on how to approach working on it in your practice sessions. Enjoy. Okay, so there's two big things that are challenging about this etude. One is the tempo. It's written at half note equals 110, so it's pretty brisk. And two is the speed in which the chord progressions move by. So for working with the tempo, I would suggest they have a few different tracks at different tempos on the TJEA website. Go there, and once you're comfortable with it at a slower tempo, start trying to incorporate it with the recordings at the slower tempos. But I would start by trying to learn some of these more challenging passages at a tempo even slower than some of the slower recordings. You really want to make sure that you get this stuff under your fingers before you try getting it together with a recording. Really take the time, find all your fingerings, find your patterns, and really get those under your fingers before you start to work with the recordings. The other thing is the key centers. So this tune is based on Coltrane changes, and Coltrane changes are very sophisticated harmonic progressions that go through very distantly related key signatures in a very fast amount of time. This specific tune in this key that is written in for us, it goes through three major tonal centers, and that's C sharp major, F major, and A major, C sharp or D flat major. Okay, so what I would start with is just practice some scales up and down, and practice some scale patterns. Maybe you want to do thirds, or what are your favorite major scale pattern up and down the horn in those three keys, so you start to get your fingers used to playing in those different key centers. Okay, so really getting yourself familiarized with those tonal centers in your ears, in your fingers, and just in your familiarity with the harmonic centers, and that'll kind of help. And then try to recognize them as you go along. You'll see that the chord changes are written above the etude, so they're basically telling you what tonal center they're going to in each measure. So you can kind of see them as you go along, so they're easier to pick out, but just recognize what key you're in. So for example, if you're looking at measure 10, there's a B minor to an E7 to an A major. That's a 2-5-1 in the key of A major. So all of that passage is going to be in the key of A major. So when you're practicing it, you should be able to look at that passage and just know already what the notes are going to be because you already are familiar with that key center. And then in helping with that, you'll also notice that there's a D sharp, which does not belong in the A major key center. So that's a non-harmonic tone. So that's kind of a special, colorful tone that you may want to enhance in your phrasing. So not only does it show you what notes are part of that scale, it also shows you what notes are not normal in that scale, and maybe kind of add some color or some passing tones into these melodies. So you've got the tempo, you've got your different key centers, and then also there's the time feel. It's written as a samba, and samba is a little different than your typical swing time feel. So if I'm looking at this etude and I'm thinking in a swing pattern, right? Like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. A drummer would be bang, bang, ga-dang, bang, ga-dang, ga-doom, ga-doom, chink, ga-doom, chink, ga-doom, bum, ba-doom, dum, da-dum. Okay? That would be what the drummer would be playing in his division of the beat. So when you're listening for time feel, listen to the drummer and really think about what the drummer's doing and really zone into how you can lock in your time feel with the drummer's time feel. So if they're going bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, 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 you want to go, right? Ba-ba-doo, ba-da, ba-da, ba-da. But if it's that same tempo and it's a samba, and the drummer's going bones, get going, get right? The division of that beat is a lot different than the swing feel. So if you're going doons, good doons, good doons, good doons, right? It's a little more, the space of the eighth notes are not quite as far apart. They're a little more straight and connected. But it's got to lock in with the rhythm section. And when you go to these websites, these are great rhythm sections that you're playing with. So really take the time to listen to that, to dig into the time feel, and try to match your rhythmic phrasing with that of the rhythm section. So you got tempo, you got key center, you got time feel. As far as phrasing goes, another challenge to this etude is that they're really long phrases, especially when you get to the higher tempo. There's not really, there's a few like eighth notes here and there that are written as rest, but it goes by so fast that taking a breath there really is too quick to grab it and make it sound like a convincing portrayal of the melody. So I would not breathe in those parts. So when I'm playing this, I'm starting the very first measure with a big breath, and then I'm going all the way to measure 11 before I even take a breath, okay? And then from measure 12, I'm taking a big breath before that in that beat and a half leading into that, and I'm going all the way to measure 13, 14, measure 15, okay? And then the next long phrase is from measure 15 all the way to measure 23. Okay, so that's another really long phrase. So you've got a really long phrase, kind of a medium phrase, and then another pretty long phrase. And then after measure 21, 22, 23, 24, I go all the way to 29. Okay, so another pretty long phrase, and then the last three measures of the tune. So there's really only like 5 phrases in this tune and 4 places to take a breath. So really plan where those breaths are going to be and do them consistently so that they become a natural habit in your playing. And the challenging part about that is that the slower you take the etude, the longer the phrases are going to draw out and the more you're going to need to get your air. So you may have to put in a couple of quick breaths, understanding that the end goal will be to create those nice longer connected phrases. It'll be a good way to practice your air support. So phrases, also the articulation. This is all mostly eighth notes, and we talked about the time feel of the eighth notes, right? there's only a few phrase and articulation markings, most of them being staccato marks over quarter notes, especially quarter notes on the upbeat. So if you look at all of the quarter notes in here, like in measure 1, 2, 3, measure 4, there's a staccato over a quarter note. Measure 5, there's a staccato over the quarter note. Measure 7, again. Measure 13, another one. Measure 13, 14, 15, measure 16. Okay, so a lot of these upbeat quarter notes have staccato markings over them. So you're going to want to watch those and make sure you're phrasing those appropriately. Also, the very first measure, I personally would default, and this is really the great part about this art form, is that there's not a lot of information stylistically here for you, so you have to use your artistry in interpreting your version of this, how you're going to articulate it, how you're going to shape these phrases, the lengths of the notes and everything. That's really the great part of this, about this art form, is the amount of personal interpretation that's left up to the artist. But also, if you're auditioning for a chair like second tenor or first tenor or anything other than lead alto, and even lead alto, you want to be able to quickly adapt to changes in articulation. So a great section player is able to listen up the section for how their leader is phrasing. They're playing this short, needing to like quickly adapt and remember that that's how they're phrasing it, and marking it in, and making sure that you're supporting the entire sound of the ensemble. Even the lead alto player is listening up to the first bone and the first trumpet, and really trying to work as a cohesive whole to phrase this so that it sounds like one unit. But so this first measure, I would default to playing quarter notes short. So if I was going to read this, I would probably play it. But since all of the other quarter notes are marked short, I would probably play those long personally, because everything else has been really specific in how it's marked. So I would play those long, since knowing that every other quarter note is marked staccato, I would play these first two quarter notes long. And that one specifically marked short. Okay, so watching those articulations, and then the rest of it, you're going to have to really take some time and watch for your phrases. Also, think about the larger phrase. Have a shape to your phrase, and watch where these intervals are going. You'll have phrases that are really triadic, like measure 3. Right? Really triadic and kind of like linear up and down. And then some that are a little more disjunct, like this one. Right, that was measure 6. Okay, so a little more disjunct. So use those different intervals to help you shape kind of an up and down tension and release within your phrasing. Okay, so take it slow, really dig into these intervals, really learn these key centers, really pay attention to phrasing, and enjoy preparing this etude. I hope this helps, and have fun.